Good afternoon, everybody. This is Debbie. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This is part 2 of our financial training. So thank you for joining us again. We are going to continue on the subject of finances, but today we're going to be going over some specific things and how to best complete them. Here's our reminders. Remember just to keep your cameras off. This is going to save your bandwidth and allow you to hear the program a lot better. It shouldn't skip on you or anything like that. Hit me up in the chat function if you've got questions. I'll do my best to keep an eye on that. Again, just our registration. You'll be getting a clock hours email after this, and today's the PowerPoint and the handouts will be available on our Louisiana Fit Kids site probably in the next couple of days. As usual, we'll begin with our non-discrimination statement. So in accordance with federal civil rights laws, the USDA, civil rights regulations and policies, this institution is prohibited from discriminating on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, disability, age, or reprisal or retaliation for any prior civil rights activity. We are an equal opportunity provider. So again, welcome to part 2 of financial training. Today's agenda, we're going to go over some of our financial requirements. We're going to go over some allowable costs and unallowable costs. We're going to take a look at some budgets. We're going to go over how to best follow our budgets. We're going to really delve into how to transfer funds in between accounts. I'm going to document a timesheet for you. We're going to go over our timesheet functions. We're going to go over the importance of having a separate CACFP account. And then I have, in today's presentation, it's not a whole lot of slides today, but I have built in a lot of time for questions and answers. I really want to give y'all this opportunity to ask questions. So we have a really good clear picture of what we need to do going forward. So getting right down to action. A couple of you all have contacted me and wanted to see these requirements again for single and multi-site centers. And this will be in the PowerPoints that you can download after today's presentation. We did start off with this last month for our training session. These are the required records of what you guys need to do daily, weekly, monthly, and then even yearly for both single sites and for multi-sites for you guys that have more than one facility. This is a great one-page handout. It's got links in there. And it's really one-stop shopping on what you need to be doing and when to maintain the highest amount of integrity and get the best outcomes for your food programs. So we're just going to get at it. Financial guidelines. And some of these things might be new to you. Some of these things you've probably heard over and over again, but since they're so relevant, we're going to continue to go over them again. So all CACFP sites must maintain receipts and invoices, including timesheets. Okay. If you have any labor on your approved budget, you're going to have, and you transfer that labor, you're going to have a timesheet for that. Your bank statements and canceled checks are needed to verify any payments that you make. No cash transactions or cash withdrawals from the CACFP account are allowed, ever. Okay? That is a huge no-no. Withdrawing cash and or withdrawing, have cash withdrawals or writing checks to cash. All CACFP transactions must be documented by checks, debits, deposit slips, the itemized receipts, timesheets, etc. Commingling of funds is never a good idea. We require separate CACFP accounts, okay, or a line item accounting, which all CACFP expenditures and debits are on that separate line item, okay? So we never want commingling of funds. That's never a good idea. Only CACFP approved items should appear on the receipts, okay? In the event that an unallowable item is purchased, okay, reimbursement of that item must be made from the general account back to the CACFP account. Receipts must be itemized, and we need to preserve the integrity of the stored receipts. Remember, our record retention policy is back 3. It's current year plus 3 back. So we all know, like the Walmart receipt, the receipts that are print out on the little receipt paper, those fade over time. Those can, they can just completely go blank on you. So the best practice is to make a photocopy of those things, to where they won't fade on you. And we're going to go over in each of these guidelines in depth a little bit more. So what's allowable? Okay. Items that are approved in the annual budget that have the appropriate documentation to identify the purchase. And items that directly relate to food or non-food items approved for the CACFP. So I've gathered some examples here, and we have seen, I'm just drawing on examples that your reviewers have seen. So the first one, like antibacterial wipes for the kitchen, is approved. It's an approved non-food item versus diaper wipes for the classrooms. Okay, so the CACFP will not pay for diaper wipes for the classrooms. So cleaning items for the kitchen versus cleaning items for bathroom and or toilet paper. Okay, so that is not allowed. 100% juice for children versus coffee and creamer. I know we all need coffee. Okay, that is an essential thing for us. And for me too, but it is not an approved component on the CACFP program. So that is it. We're not allowed to purchase coffee and creamer with CACFP funds. Can anybody tell me about coffee filters? Coffee filters, when used as like a plate or a napkin, we have a lot of centers that are using coffee filters for afternoon snacks to hold like crackers, to hold cheese nips and things like that. And that is an acceptable item because it's used in, it's directly used in the serving of food. So we see that. And that is acceptable for use of coffee filters like that. Okay, crisp rice cereal is okay. Crisp rice treat or not. Okay, those crisp rice treats are classified as a sweet grain, and that is not allowable. So strawberries versus strawberry fruit bars, again, those strawberry fruit bars are not allowed because it's a sweet grain. Animal crackers versus vanilla wafer cookies. Okay, the vanilla wafer cookies are not allowed. It's a sweet grain, but the only two that we're allowed to serve are your animal crackers and your graham crackers, because technically they're labeled a cracker. Pest control for the kitchen versus pest control for the whole center. If you request, to use some of your monies for pest control, it would only pay for the portion that is used for the kitchen, not the whole center. What is allowable? Seasonings and items used in cooking. Okay, if you're cooking and it's part of the ingredients that are going in the recipe, your state reviewers consider that allowable. Small wares used in the kitchen as budgeted, that is allowable as well. Okay. Your forks, your knives, your serving spoons, your measuring spoons, measuring cups, your pots and pans, things like that. Those are small wares. And if you have a budget for non-food supplies, those are allowable purchases. Kitchen equipment. Kitchen equipment can also be an allowable purchase with the approved equipment purchase documentation. Okay, you would fill out those equipment purchase requests. You would get your 3 quotes and you would send that into our office. And with approval, you would be allowed to use CACFP funds to purchase some kitchen equipment. Any questions on this page? Now, of course, this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just some things that we wanted to highlight and mention for today. Any questions so far? Any about what is allowable and what is not? Okay. I'll still keep my eyes on the chat, but I'm going to continue on. So, not allowed. NSF charges are absolutely not allowed. Checks written to cash and cash withdrawals. Any unbudgeted expenditure. Any meals outside of the approved agreement. And any advanced payments for labor and any paid overtime, any holiday or vacation time that is reimbursed from the CACFP account. Okay. If you guys, and we're going to go over this in a little bit more in depth whenever we go over the timesheets. Okay. If you choose to pay, overtime or holiday or vacation time for your employees, that would come out of the general account. Again, just another sheet. Foods that do not count in the child and adult care food program. This would be your bacons except for turkey bacon. Okay. Now about bacon. Because we know we season with bacon, we cook vegetables with bacon down here. If we see a pound of bacon and it's an ingredient in a recipe, we're not going to say anything about that. Okay. But bacon by itself, and if we're seeing a lot of that being purchased, we will ask for you to reimburse the account back for that. Okay. Other things like your potted meats, powdered cheeses, going down to the next category, your banana chips, ketchup is not considered a vegetable. Any of those fruit drinks, we know we can't serve any of that. Jams, jellies, things like that, syrups. Okay. Now that I've mentioned some pretty important ones here, ketchup. Okay. We know you guys serve baked French fries. We know you guys serve tater tots and things. Yes, ketchup comes with that. That is considered that's basically, we consider that to be an ingredient in that item. So we do allow that to be purchased. And we know, like French toast sticks, even pancakes, if you choose to serve syrup with that, we do allow that as well. Okay. But it just doesn't count towards a component, and it is not listed in Kid Care or not listed on your menu worksheets. Does that make sense? Okay. Now I want to see some of you guys start hitting me up in this chat, because I want to make sure that I'm not losing y'all. I want to make sure that you guys aren't sleeping out there, because I do know it's nap time. All right. Foods that do not count toward a bread or bread alternate. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Any of these sweet grains, we know those don't count. The next category is your milk requirements. We know any like any puddings, any half and half, any of that stuff. We know all that doesn't count. And things down at the bottom, that's not going to count towards a requirement. However, if it's, if you're serving toast, if you need to, butter your bread, that's totally fine. Again, it's just not listed in kid care. And you can serve that. It's just not considered a component. CACFP expenditures and the budget. I hope this looks really, really, really familiar to you guys. It should. This is where you find your budget for your labor. Okay. This on the left-hand side of your screen, this is your food service staffing plan. This is the last page of the facility budget. This is where you entered the person's name, their title, you listed their CACFP duties, their number of hours worked per day, and that you want it to come from the child care funds. This number right here comes from your calendar, your operating calendar. This is how many days you're going to be open during the year. So, Mr. Doe, right down here, he's the staff member, he's the cook. And you all have an approved budget of 8 hours a day at $12 an hour. And annually, that means $24,288. That's your annual cost, and it's coming out of the CACFP account. So on your budget application, this is your administrative staffing plan. Okay, this is for you. Okay, for one of these administrators to be able to administer the program. So again, you just list everything right here. This is you would put how many hours per day. That's usually 1 to 2 hours per day, because we know that you guys have many, many, many duties other than the food program in your day. So you're budgeted for 1 hour a day at $10 an hour, and that annualizes to be $2,500 a year. This is where these two numbers are found, and this is what is transferred to a timesheet. Your full budget. Again, this should look familiar. Your budget is based on how many participants you have and what category they fall in, whether they're free, reduced, and above. Okay. And how many operating days you have, and for your meal types that you're reimbursed. Now, on this example, don't worry about all of these numbers in here. For this example, this site has 4 sites, 4 facilities. That's why they have all of these numbers listed here. And they were approved for breakfast, lunch, snack, and then a dinner meal. Okay. So based upon all of the information, so they have an annual budget of about $198,000. The first thing is that we require is 50% of your annual budget must be spent on food. So you'll see that at least this number right here in your food purchase has to be 50%. Your sponsored trainings, we generally, all of our trainings are free, and right now they're all online. So unless you have something specific to request, money in for some type of training, we usually don't see any money requested in here. Your food service labor cost. Okay. This is your annual labor cost that comes from your facility application. This is your non-food supplies that we just talked about. This is the amount, the annual amount, the maximum amount that you have budgeted annually for non-food supplies. Again, pest control, if you wanted to ask that any of your money go towards pest control, again, it would only go for pest and for garbage. It would only go for your kitchen garbage, and it would only go for pest control for the kitchens and not for the whole facilities, which would mean it would if your bill is $120 a month for pest control, we could probably, justify it paying for $60 a month, just as an example. Mileage allowance. This is mileage allowance is only allowed for multi-site centers to drive in between those centers. It is not allowed for things like trips to the grocery store or anything else. So all of these in blue, these are considered your operational costs. And then this next category down here, those are considered your administrative costs, like utilities. Okay. The food program will pay for kitchen specific utilities. Okay. Not utilities for the whole center, but for kitchen specific. We usually don't have any, in telephone, we don't require, there's nothing to be mailed, so there's no postage. If you'd like to request money for office supplies, but this would be supplies for only the food program. And then your administrative labor costs, that is again, your admin labor that we showed you on the previous screen. Administrative costs cannot exceed 15%. That is a federal regulation. Any questions on this? Okay, moving along. Let's talk about transferring money. Because we do see this a lot, and this is necessary in most cases. So approved money transfers from the CACFP account to the general account or to the person who made the purchases are allowed with supporting documentation. Okay, so just a couple examples. It is a very busy day. You guys have had 2 people call out. You've had 1 no-show. You got a center full of kids, and somebody needs, you're running out of milk, and somebody needs to grab milk for lunch, but nobody can leave the center. So there's an employee on her way in that can stop off at the store and purchase the milk. Okay. Thank goodness. So she uses her own money. Okay. She turns in the receipt to you. You log the receipt into KidCare, and you save that receipt with your monthly receipts. And reimbursement can be made back to that employee in the same exact amount of the total purchase. And that can be reimbursed from the CACFP account. Okay. So you can, if she spends $40.50 on that milk that she's bringing in, you can, if you have checks, you can write her a check from that CACFP account. In the memo on the bottom of the check, you can write reimbursed for milk purchases, and you can give her that check, or you can transfer that amount. If you don't have checks, or you only have a debit card, you transfer $40.50 to the general account, and then you can pay her out of that general account however you would like. You can add that to her check. You can reimburse her that $40.50 however you would like. Okay. Does that make sense? And this can also be y'all, because I know a lot of you guys out there purchase things and you don't reimburse yourself for those. And when legally you can. Okay. Next example. Employee purchases milk on the way to the center, along with a candy bar and an energy drink, and brings a fancy coffee back for the director. Okay. Now look, we're going to stop right here. I got to tell y'all, this is an employee of the year. This is just absolutely outstanding. Okay. So what can you do about that? Because it's all on one receipt. So only the amount of the milk plus the tax for that milk can be reimbursed from the CACFP account. Okay. And you would make a note that those other purchases on that receipt were not going to be reimbursed from the CACFP account. Now, does this mean that that employee does not get reimbursed for that? Okay, not necessarily. That is your decision. You can reimburse that employee for those purchases, for the candy bar, the energy drink, and the fancy coffee. You can reimburse her personally. You can reimburse that from the general account. Okay. But only the milk and the tax on the milk would be reimbursed from the CACFP account. Okay. So if that was $60, that was owed to that employee, absolutely pay that employee. What I would do in that case is I would transfer however much the milk and the tax on that milk was, and I would document that on the receipt, put a little initial, and I would transfer that amount of money penny for penny to the general account, and you can reimburse whatever you need to do out of your general account. How am I doing so far? Give me some feedback. Am I clear? Is this clear as mud? Thank you. Thank you. One of the things about doing these Zoom classes, without direct feedback is I'm kind of alone over here. All right. As long as you guys are following along, we will continue. So I hope these were good examples. A lot of times I know, you guys need the help. I mean, it's busy. We're out there. We see it every single day, and I'll even recognize that it never fails that these things happen whenever we show up to your buildings. And we feel really bad about that. So, we just want to provide you guys with all the tools and equipment that you need to do your jobs, and take care of our wonderful children. Let's talk about online purchases for a minute, because we're more and more that we're getting asked these questions. So, can you purchase things online? Can you purchase them from Amazon? Can you purchase from eBay? Things like that for the food program. The short answer is quite possibly yes. Online purchases are allowed with CACFP funds as long as they meet the program requirements that we've previously discussed. Okay. So you might, it might be easier for you to order small wares, pots, pans, kitchen items from an online vendor. Okay. As long as you're budgeted for those items and as long as they're acceptable to purchase, yes, you can do that. Your CACFP accounts should really have a debit card with them. Okay. I know a lot of places these days don't take checks anymore. So if your account does not have a debit card, I would see about getting one. Because those things can be really handy. This next statement on here, excuse me, at this time, delivery fees and driver tips for approved purchases are allowable. Okay. This is something that the state agency discussed with USDA, and they okayed it. Tips must not exceed 20%. And you record these items in the other spot in Kid Care. So right down here on your online purchases, you're always going to do quick entry. You guys know how to do all of this. Okay, enter all of this. You're going to enter your receipt total. You're going to enter your food and or supplies. So in this other category right down here, this is where the tip, and this is where the, if there is a delivery fee, this is where that would be added. So that could be tracked, and then you just go ahead and save your receipt. Okay, we don't want this to get excessive. Okay, that's why they limited it not to exceed the 20%. But it is allowable, and that's something that we were pleasantly shocked with. So I hope that makes y'all's lives a little easier. Okay, Miss Robinson. Is the delivery fees like DoorDash, like milk, for milk or something? This would be for any item that is CACFP approved. Okay. So I hadn't thought about DoorDash. We were more in lines of thinking like your Walmart orders, your Sam's orders, those type of services. If I'm guessing that you're door dashing items for the center. So Miss Robinson, I'm probably going to have to think about that one for a little bit and run that one up the chain of command. Because I'm not exactly sure. When I think of DoorDash or Uber Eats, I'm thinking about fast foods, and I'm just questioning if that would be specifically for the food program. Maybe if you could give me a little bit more feedback on that. Okay. Miss Malika, about the 20%, your tips must not exceed the 20% limit. Okay. So it can't exceed 20% of your order. Okay. Okay, so you guys are asking me about DoorDash from convenience stores like Dollar General and so on. And if it would be for milk, that would probably be okay. We would not want to see that very frequently. Okay. We would not want to see that very frequently, because that could be a management problem or a problem with accountability of running your program. Okay, we were mainly talking about like your main food orders. We know that some of our Cisco, some of our food service vendors are charging delivery fees now, then they've been for a while now, and like from your Walmart and Sam's, your main food and supply deliveries. Any other questions? Okay, CACFP expenditures and the budget. Let's do again. Yes, Miss Robinson. That makes a lot of sense. Walmart and Sam's door dashes would be like for emergencies only, where someone could not go and get that. Honestly, that's kind of a gray area. That if we're seeing a lot of the door dashes, that is going to make us as an auditor and me as a reviewer, that is going to make me look real hard into some things if that's happening very frequently. Again, okay, so CACFP expenditures and the budget. Let's do an employee timesheet. Forgive me while I share my screen here. Okay, is everybody seeing this? Is everybody seeing a timesheet? I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. Bear with me here. Okay, so thanks for that feedback. So this is our timesheet. This is one timesheet for the entire year. We have 12 months listed on one page. So we're going to start out by filling the employee name. We're just going to call it Jane Doe, employee title, cook. And we're going to go for fiscal year 25, 26. So the first thing that we're going to put on here is from our annual budget. Okay. We were doing $10 an hour, correct? $10 an hour for 8 hours per day. Okay. And this is where the employee would sign. So you were going to document every day that they show up as straight time. Okay. So October, and I'm going to assume that October 1st is going to be a Monday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, not for the weekends. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 5. Whoops, that would be a weekend. Okay. So for a straight, they were here. They had perfect attendance. They showed up every day that month. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 160. And this is exactly how you guys are going to fill it out. You don't have to fill it out on the computer. We see a lot of things that are handwritten. And that is totally fine. Okay. So we've got 160 hours, if my quick math is correct, times what they're budgeted at that $10 an hour. So we have a maximum of $1,600 that we could transfer to the general account to cover the portion of that labor for the cook. Okay. Now, just because you're budgeted for it doesn't mean you have to do this. What if you're new? What if we know food is very expensive these days, that you just don't feel comfortable transferring the whole $1,600? Okay. And that is a decision that you guys can make. That $1,600 is the maximum amount possible that you could transfer for that month. You do not have to transfer any money if you're not comfortable with that. And if you're only comfortable with transferring $800, okay, or just half of that, you can do that. Okay. So instead of 1,600 here, you could transfer, instead of this check number right here, because you're not going to write a check for that employee, then you probably don't want to write a check and then to go deposit it into your general account. Okay. You can put the amount transferred here. Let's just say you wanted to do $800 and you transferred that on November the 3rd. Okay. So that you transferred $800 instead of the $1,600. How about that? Okay. So now we have this timesheet that just turned into a receipt. Okay. This timesheet just turned into a receipt for $800. And we're going to see a debit from the food account for $800. And we're going to see that was transferred to your general account. Guess what? We're done. We do not have to follow that anywhere. Okay. So what we're really saying here with these transfers and what we're really saying to not commingle the fund is that we don't want any business. We don't want any excuse for having to go into your general account. So please understand, as auditors, we are responsible for every penny of federal money that you get for this food program. If you get $5,000.25, okay, we have to follow $5,000.25 until it is exhausted. Okay, that's what we do. We look over all of those receipts. The receipts have to be itemized. We're going to look for everything that you're purchased. Okay, everything that you've purchased, we're going to make sure that it's on your menus. Okay, so if we see items, like crawfish, we're going to expect to see, an item with crawfish tails on your menus. We're going to expect to see, the things that you purchased listed on your menus. And in kid care, we're going to want to make sure that all of those receipts are itemized. And there are several times that when we're looking at Walmart receipts or Sam's receipts, we don't know what the description is. And there's always that number on the receipt. So we can pull up our Walmart or Sam's apps and we type in that number and the item comes up. Okay. So we can look and make sure that it is an approved component and things like that. So it's pretty easy to back into these numbers. What I do want to tell you is that you have to pay labor within 3 months of when it occurs. Okay, so let's say today's May. Okay, we're down here in May. Can you go back and transfer labor from October, November, and December? No. Okay, it has to occur within 3 months, or you lose the ability to transfer that money. Okay. And that's because, we really don't want money building up in your CACFP account. And if you don't need it, we want it to go for where it was budgeted. So does that make sense? Okay. Again, let's go over some other examples. You might have the best cook in the world. You might want to pay them $50 an hour. However, the food program can only reimburse the 10. Okay. Does that mean you can only pay them the 10? No, it does not. What you do from your general account is your business. You might pay them more than 10. However, the food program can only afford to reimburse them for the 10. You might be paying them $17 or $18 an hour. And that's up to you. You are the owner and you are the one that runs your business. Okay. The only thing that we're concerned about is staying at or under budget for these labor transfer. Does that make sense? Ms. Brown, I see your question. Is it okay just to transfer the net pay back to the general account? So by net pay, I'm thinking that means after taxes and things like that. We do not, we are not concerning ourselves with taxes from the CACFP account. All of that comes from your general account. So when you transfer the money for this payroll, you're transferring the actual rate of pay times the hours worked. That is the amount of money that you're transferring to your general account. And you pay them just like any other employee, following all the federal guidelines, and what your accountant says from the general account. Does that make sense? So you do not have to worry. You're going to transfer just the gross amount. Don't worry about the net from the CACFP account. But your pay practices like minus benefits, minus taxes, and all of that, that comes from your general account. That's where you worried about you worry about your gross and your net from your general account, not the CACFP account. Did I do a good enough job explaining that, Miss Shirley? Let me know. Miss Rose, I see your question. Is it okay for the director to be the cook? Yes, it would be okay. Or if somebody has to float into the cook position if a cook is out. But that would be paid and reimbursed at the cook's hours and at the cook wage. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Miss Rose. So again, this timesheet acts as your receipt for withdrawal for labor from the CACFP account to the general account, and that money is paid out of the general account. Let me change my settings right quick. There we go. So you guys should be looking at the full screen for CACFP expenditures and the budget. And again, you're going to have a copy of this timesheet on the Fit Kids website. Okay, Joni, you think I just said this? The amount we transfer in this case would be $1,600 from the general account to pay the employee from the general account. Yes, you could transfer up to $1,600 if you have that money. If you're comfortable doing that amount, that's the maximum amount that you could transfer from the CACFP account to the general account to offset whatever you do pay them. And, you know, in your regular payroll, that would come out of your general account. Again, to recap, amounts for labor to be transferred must be made to the general account. And again, the employees are paid out of your general account following all labor laws. Amounts cannot exceed the budgeted amount, and the transfers absolutely may be less. Or if for some reason your account balance is low, the transfers aren't mandatory. You do not have to transfer labor every month. There are a lot of centers out there whose food bills are so high that they never transfer any labor. It's, most of the time, all of their money goes to food, and that's okay too. And then again, as a state agency, we do not allow transfers that are over 3 months old. Okay. You cannot save up a whole year's worth of labor and then transfer that huge one month sum or one lump sum. Okay. Something to consider. It kind of breaks my heart because sometimes we hear that, well, that's not what you guys said, or this person says this, or this person says that, or that's not what this agency does, and things like that. What I want you guys to consider is that rules, regulations, and processes that are currently allowed or disallowed can and do change frequently. Okay. Stay in contact with your state agency for any updates and make sure you're receiving our emails. Okay. Emails are sent to the email addresses listed for the director on the first page of the CACFP sponsor application. Okay. Unfortunately, we can still only list one email there. I'm going to be real honest with y'all. I was shocked when we got approval for delivery fees and for tips. Again, I will be honest with y'all. I expect that to be withdrawn at some point. That's just my opinion. So I'm just being very honest with you guys. Things are changed. We're in a process of change right now. We have new directives coming down from federal agencies almost weekly. So we are pretty, and we adjust to those as we need to. But just keep in mind that things can and do change, and we will communicate those items to you guys as quickly as possible. Question? Any questions? I've got 153. We do have some important upcoming events to go over. So if you have any questions, hit me up in the chat. I am still looking at the chat. Upcoming important events. We've got 2025-26 training and application releases. That's going to come in your August and September timeframe. We have fiscal reviews and operational reviews continuing. We are traveling all around the state. So again, keep checking your emails for important updates. Got some updates from KidCare. Expect attendance and meal documentation timeframes to be locked down to a time requirement in the upcoming months. Okay. KidCare notices of this change with the documentation of sponsor acceptance is forthcoming. Okay. So expect some pop-up blocks when you log into KidCare that says, as of this date, and I'm not sure of the date yet, that attendance and meal counts will be locked down, which means that either by the end of a certain number of days, by 5 or 7 days, that if you don't have attendance or your meal counts logged in KidCare, that you will not be able to do so and you will lose that reimbursement. Okay. We are having to do this because we can track whenever you guys log your attendance in KidCare and hit the fork and the knife in KidCare and log that child received a meal. Federal regulations require that is done daily and at the time of meal service. Okay. KidCare does track when that is done. So if it's, you could possibly be opening yourself up for a little bit of a liability if that is not done within appropriate timeframes. So that is why that lockdown is coming. Okay. I just wanted to give you guys you guys are first to know because this is the first time that we have advertised this. So you guys are the first to know about it, but expect that to be happening. I would want to say before October 1, before the new fiscal year. And expect KidCare operational settings to be locked down if they're not already. Okay. We've got some of you guys are really, really, really computer savvy, and that is a wonderful thing. But we are realizing that KidCare settings or some of the settings have been changed. And that maybe the meal times are different. Well, the meal times in KidCare, should match with what is on your legal agreement with the state. And some of those have gotten changed. So by locking down the operational settings, we just want to make sure that we match what we've legally signed and legally agreed to. So if those are not locked down already, they're going to be very soon. KidCare is going to push an update where all settings are changed back to what is required, and then those settings are going to be locked down. Okay, so both of these criteria are currently being monitored by us, at the state agency. Ms. Stewart, I see your comment. Sometimes you can't log it until the end of the day. We do understand that those things happen. I do not expect it to be locked down to the end of the day. But I do expect it to be locked down by the end of the week. Ms. Kathy, I see that you also track on paper when meals are served. Can we still count? Yes, if you have paper documentation, again, we hate for you to have to keep paper documentation because kid care is so quick to do that, but we understand. And we understand that if internet is out or if power is out, and you're having to close down the center, taking care of children is always the number one priority. And we understand that those situations are going to happen. That's when you would contact us at the office, and we could probably do something about that, to where you could go ahead and enter that. But I don't expect it to be locked down. I mean, you guys are saying until the end of the day, or I don't expect it to be locked down to that short of a time frame. I just don't. So I don't think that short of a time frame is something that you need to worry with. I would expect 5 to 7 days. Which still would give you guys some leeway. If internet goes down, if power goes down, your priority should not be logging things into kid care. It should absolutely be taking care of children. And we understand that. I promise you, we understand that. Here is us. Here is how to contact us. This is every member of our staff, phone numbers and emails. What happens next is over the next couple of days, you'll receive an email with the link to the webinar. You will receive emails for clock hours, for pathways. And any ideas for upcoming trainings that you would like? Please let us know. Please let us know. At this time, it's 1:59. So I will let you guys continue on with your day. Let me know if you have any questions. Today was a pretty specific training, so I hope I did well enough with explaining all of this. If not, give me a few minutes to cut the training off and do some things that I need to do. Start sending me some emails or start calling me. I am here for you guys, and I want to make things better, and I want you all to have all of the information that you need. So thank you very much.